All right, welcome. It is Wednesday, May 28th at 3 o'clock, and this is the hearing examiner hearing. And we start with staff. Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Ms. Canning. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the City of Boise Hearing Examiner public hearing. So just a few things to start off with tonight or for this afternoon's proceedings. First off, everyone from the public entering the hearing virtually on Zoom has been automatically muted and cannot speak. So as the item you're interested in comes up for discussion, you will be called upon and unmuted. There is also a chat function in Zoom, so this is not part of the public record and should only be used if technical difficulties arise. So our procedures for public hearings begin with a presentation from the planning team. We'll next go to the appellant or the applicant, and then to the representative of the Registered Neighborhood Association if they're here. This will be followed by questions from the hearing examiner, and after that we will proceed to the public testimony. So we'll start with public testimony for those that are here in person and that signed up on the sign-up sheet, and then anyone else who just raises their hand. And then we'll move on to anyone who's attending virtually. If you are attending virtually, as the item that comes up that you're interested in, please raise your hand virtually. So that's down at the bottom. There should be a raise hand option for the Zoom. And if you are attending through your telephone, you can type in *9 to raise your hand. When you're giving testimony, each speaker should state their name and address for the record to start off with. And then each member of the public is allowed up to 3 minutes for testimony. So we are strict with this time as it is limited in code. And finally, the procedure will end with the applicant or appellant will be allowed time for rebuttal. So after which the hearing will then be closed and the hearing examiner will deliberate and render their decision. And with that, Ms. Canning, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you. So we will now call the meeting to order. And I am an independent decision maker hired by the City of Boise and approved by the City Council. I make decisions on variances and appeals. Any request to reconsider these decisions must be formally requested in writing pursuant to City Code. We only use the consent agenda here to adopt findings related to previous decisions. All items that are placed on the consent agenda are approved without further public comment. And for items not on the consent agenda, we will hold a full public hearing in the manner that the staff just presented a few minutes ago. And thank you all for attending. This is a big crowd for me. I usually have like one person out there, so this is big stuff. For the record, I, Anna Canning, will be the hearing examiner rendering decisions this afternoon. And our first order of business is to accept the minutes from our March 26, 2025 hearing. I have reviewed those minutes and accept them for the record. Okay, moving on to new business. It's been around for a while, kind of hard to call it new business, but there we are. So the first one is CZC 240098, Glancy Rockwell Associates. It's a reconsideration hearing on an appeal.
All right. Good afternoon, Ms. Canning. The item before you is the reconsideration of an appeal of the planning director's approval of a triplex on 0.14 acres located at 2921 West Pleasanton Avenue in an R2 zone. The appeal was originally brought before you on February 26th. At that time, the appeal was granted on the grounds that the project proposed 3 units within detached structures, which you did not find to comply with the code definition of a triplex. On April 23rd, a request for reconsideration was brought before you, and you granted the request based on conceptual revised plans, which proposed 3 units within a single structure with a shared roof. At that time, you directed staff to prepare a detailed analysis of the revised plans prior to today's hearing. The revised plans and staff's analysis are included in your packet. As detailed in the staff report, the planning team finds that with the conditions of approval that were included in the original action letter, the revised plans will be consistent with the use-specific standards for a triplex dwelling. In addition to the original grounds for appeal, the appellant has submitted additional comments regarding the revised plans and has requested that conditions be placed to restrict the window locations, height, and density of the project. The appellant's concerns are summarized on this slide, and their full comments are included in your packet, along with comments received from one other neighbor of the development. As detailed in the initial appeal report, the proposed development is in compliance with the allowed density and height limits of the R2 zone. And the use-specific standards for triplex dwellings do not restrict window placements or require triplexes to mimic the architectural style or color palette of neighboring properties. Additionally, conditions of approval included in the original action letter require the applicant to obtain all required erosion and sediment control and building permits prior to starting construction, and limit the hours of exterior construction to minimize impacts on neighboring properties. With the conditions of approval, the construction of the proposed development is not anticipated to unduly impact neighboring properties. In conclusion, the planning team finds that the revised plans submitted on May 8th comply with the applicable use-specific standards and resolve the errors outlined in the hearing examiner's previous decision regarding the appeal. The planning team also finds that the grounds submitted by the appellant do not demonstrate that the revised project violates city, state, or federal law. Therefore, the planning team recommends that the hearing examiner modifies the original decision and approves the project subject to the conditions of approval listed in the original action letter with a revision to condition of approval number 1 as shown on this slide. And I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Would you go back to the description of the original appeal? There's a few slides back.
Is this the one you were looking for?
Yes, thank you. So I was reading and I lost a little bit of what you said. You said something about comments from neighbors. Can you say that again for me?
Yes, Ms. Canning. In your packet, you have the comments from the appellant regarding the revised plans. And in that same document, one other neighbor of the site provided written comment as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And that was it. Thank you very much. All right. Because this is an appeal, we will now hear from the appellant. Welcome back. Please state your name and address for the record.
Tessiana Mortician, 3008 West Madison Avenue in Boise. So thank you very much for the consideration. As I stated in my comments, that we in the neighborhood feel like this design, even though it does not break any laws, it is not in the general welfare of our neighborhood, especially for the immediate next door neighbor who is the one who submitted the additional comments to you and will testify later. We also feel like it does not protect the character of the neighborhood. As previously stated, our neighborhood is a mix of construction that is typically 1 story to 2 stories tall, single family to duplexes. So having these 3-story buildings that are narrow and tall just does not fit with the character of the neighborhood, no matter what they look like on the outside, and especially on a corner where they're going to be highly visible from all sides, from 2 of the sides. And then as far as the general welfare goes for the immediate next door neighbor, the unit closest to the alley, which I believe is Unit C in the drawings, that overlooks directly an ADU unit that he has and removes privacy from the backyard and the hot tub for that ADU unit and can impact his income, which he and his young family rely on to help pay their mortgage. In addition, some of the windows from that unit and the Unit C, the one in the middle, overlook their small backyard where their 2 toddler children play and would really impact their privacy, especially having a 3rd story overlooking the being able to overlook the roof lines into their backyard. And as I stated in my original appeal, we really would prefer that there are no windows on the east side overlooking Mr. Major's property. And it came back that those windows were needed for emergency egress. I would like to further submit for consideration that even though windows are needed for emergency egress, with the original design of the 3 units being separate, there are exterior walls on other sides where the emergency windows for egress could be used. And that if windows are being looked at for emergency egress on the east side of the property, that is a very challenging place to get to in a timely manner during a true emergency. The proposed property, the building is only set back 6 feet from the property line. There is already an existing privacy fence, And then the proposed drawings show trees being placed along that property line and specifically at the corners. So in the case of an emergency, firemen, first responders would have a really difficult time getting back there with ladders, getting them at the right correct angles for people to be able to come down, especially from a third story. So I really think that there is no harm and damage in asking for no windows to be on the east side.
Thank you.
Thank you.
End of your testimony? Thank you. All right, now we will hear from the applicant.
And Ms. Canning, I have a Kevin Schalk online, who I believe is with Glancy Rockwell.
Okay,
Kevin, you should be able to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
yes. And
Yes.
Kevin, will you please state your name and address for the record?
Kevin Schulk, 1257 West River Street, Boise, Idaho.
All right, feel free to begin your testimony.
Well, our revised proposal should be approved as is. We've moved the unit C a little further back from the alley, provide a little bit of buffer there. We reduced the windows down to the minimum, overlooking the adjacent properties. Tried to come up with something that kind of keeps the original character of the individual buildings, but still complies with the definition of a triplex. Other than that, I can answer any questions anyone has.
I do have one question. Have you reached out to the neighbor regarding screening or something that you can do with regard to those concerns?
Not at this time, no. I mean, we have the landscaping, the trees, which are kind of a narrow profile, tall tree that's going to be on the east side of the property. So that's going to provide an amount of screening.
Okay, thank you. All right, and then is there anyone representing the neighborhood association? Okay. Wasn't expecting anyone, we didn't think so. We'll now open the public hearing, starting with the sign up sheet. So I have a Corey Majors on the sign up sheet. Come on up, Corey. Please state your, or Mr. Majors, sorry. Please state your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name is Corey Majors. My address is 2919 West Pleasanton Avenue in Boise. I am the direct adjacent neighbor. So I'm really here to protect my family's well-being. I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. We are outside in the backyard all day, every day. It's my son's summer break, so that's his place to go. That's his place to play and feel safe. And having windows on the east side of the property would completely change that. This will be a 35-foot proposed property, and there's no way to escape avoidance of seeing in our backyard. It's completely open, even with some trees. I just feel that that's going to completely infringe on our privacy. That's my key concern today. My second concern, like my neighbor Tess had mentioned, is we have an ADU. We have it for a short-term rental property. It is just directly behind ours, facing the alley. It's a separate entrance and everything. And we do rely on this to supplement our income, to help pay for everything. And we built that based off of the expense of the house we paid 5 years ago. We went all in, said we are going to have to do something to help supplement this. And now with potential utility shutdowns, the build itself, this is going to completely change our income based on that build. So we're here to let you know those concerns as well. So that's really what I wanted to state.
Okay, and thank you. Thank you
thank
very
you.
much. Is there anybody else that would like to testify on this matter? Seeing no hands raised in the audience, is there anyone else online? Staff is shaking their head no. So, at this time, that appellant has an opportunity for rebuttal.
So, Ms. Koenig, you asked the architect if they have offered to reach out to us. Before I even filed the appeal, I was in contact with Sabrina Mortensen, who is in charge of this project, overseeing it. And I did tell her I was going to be filing an appeal. I told her that she was welcome to give my contact information to the builder and that I'd be willing to talk to them to prevent us where we are today. They never reached out to me. So unfortunately, that tells me what they thought of cooperating with the neighbors way back in January. And considering they still have not reached out and we've reached this contentious state, I'm disappointed that they haven't. And I really hope that you can help us reach a resolution that is suitable for our neighborhood. We are not opposed to redevelopment of that property. We just want something that fits in there. And as I stated in my comments to you, we really would like something that is no taller than 2 stories and 2 units. And quite honestly, I have a property I'm diagonally across from it. And I have a duplex. It is 2 stories, 2 units. It overlooks that. And if they were to build their 3-story units with their garage, tall, skinny, etc., that actually would probably make my rent go up because I have an attached garage. I have a completely private backyard that's much larger than anything that they would have there. And you walk into the kitchen, you walk into the primary room, so you're not carrying groceries and everything that you purchase up. So it would probably actually make my rent go up, and I'm still heavily opposed to it because of what it will do to the nature of our neighborhood and how it will impact the majors next door to this property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Martinson, can you bring up that sheet again with the one that I asked for last time? I guess I have some questions for staff. The applicant has to mitigate some trees, is that correct?
Ms. Canning, I believe that's correct.
And are all that being done on site or, okay. And I'm struggling with the appeal versus just the CZC, so forgive me for a second. Unfortunately, the proposed design may not be compatible with what is there on the ground right now, but is exactly what the code envisions for the R2 zoning district. It's basically a zoning district that's going to undergo a lot of change, especially this close to the river. And so on that ground of the appeals, I think staff has the applicant has met those provisions. Staff has addressed the off-street parking and it is sufficient for the code. And although the proposed development will impact the privacy of neighboring properties, any 3-story structure would do that, and 3-story structures are allowed. So based on that, I am going to close the public hearing and render a decision.
Ms. Koenig, I think we should probably give the applicant one more chance
Oh.
to speak to before
Okay.
we close the public hearing.
Yes,
And Kevin,
thank you
if
for reminding me.
Yep.
Yeah, I just didn't really have anything to add. That we're not against reaching out and just talking with the neighbor and finding ways to increase the privacy.
I would appreciate that if you could, because I think there's probably things you could do that would make you a good neighbor or better neighbor, that it is a large building compared to the scale of what's there. Okay. Did you have additional comments?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm going to close the public hearing and render decision. So we are deciding on the appeal, correct? So I am denying the appeal of CZC 240098. Is that the correct? Okay.
Ms. Canning, would you like to add the recommended condition in there, just updating the plans to reflect the ones that have been shown?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Great.
Sorry for that pause. Thank you for coming back in. Appreciate your interest in the property, and you're coming back for a second time around. So thank you. You can talk to staff, maybe grab Sabrina on her way out. Thank you. All right, the next item before us is CBA 250013. I'm guessing it's called Cuba Homes. And for this one, we have Madison Lockhorn.
Good afternoon, Ms. Canning. The item before you is a variance to encroach into the required rear yard setback on a 0.19 acre lot in the R1C zone. The subject property is a vacant lot and was created through a minor land division in 2022 under ROS 22-00024. On the left shows the subject property with the existing 50-foot wide Farmers Union Ditch Company easement. On the right shows a site plan that was submitted with the minor land division showing a home meeting the R1C setbacks and located outside of the easement. The proposal is to encroach 10 feet into the required 15-foot yard setback for a new 2-story single-family home on a 6,566 square foot lot. The minimum lot size in the R1C zone is 3,500 square feet. This property exceeds the minimum lot size requirement of the zone and is a flat lot with no topographical challenges. The applicant contends the easement reduces the buildable area on the lot to about 700 square feet. Code does not have a minimum buildable area. While there is an easement on the property, this easement only reduces the buildable area by about 300 square feet and does not reduce the buildable area significantly to justify a variance. The proposed single-family home can be redesigned to comply with the required setbacks and be located outside of the easement, for example, by doing a second story or a basement to increase the square footage for a home. The minor land division that created this lot would not have been approved if the lot was not able to have been built on in conformance with the code. In conclusion, the planning team recommends denial for the variance, and I will stand for any questions.
Yes, Ms. Lockhorn, could you go back to the site plan for me?
Is this the?
Yes, this is, actually, could you go back to the one from the lot split? Yeah, that one. So, this is unusual. I mean, we do have this minor land division that went on that acknowledged that there was this big easement, that normally an easement of that size would be present itself as a hardship on a piece of property. But they specifically showed a building plan at the time of that minor land division. Is staff, do they feel that the orientation depicted on that minor land division, that the current unit has to be that way? i.e. the front is facing east? Could
Ms. Canning, typically with minor land divisions and like creating new lots, we like to match like yards to like yards. So as you can see, the property to the north, which they're matching side yards. So it was kind of determined in that orientation.
But the property to the east has its front yard. You'd be matching, if that were the front, you'd be matching front to front.
And Ms. King, with subdivisions or minor land divisions, we typically, especially in cases like this where you can't match all the yards because there's corner lots or something like this, we allow the applicant to choose which is the front and which is the side and which is the rear,
Okay,
in which they've chosen this back in 2022
So-
as the orientation.
so staff does feel that they need to keep the orientation as depicted on the minor land division.
Ms. Canning, that's correct, unless they came forward with wanting to change that, which is not actually the request today.
It's closer, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I needed to know if staff felt it was still an option to have front facing north. There was mention of it by the applicant in their letter. So I just wanted to double check with staff on that. Okay, that was, can see where I'm headed maybe on that as the applicant comes up, and it's the applicant's turn to speak. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm McKenna Ramos. My address is 2009 East Oakcrest in Meridian, Idaho.
Go ahead.
I'm McKenna Ramos. I'm the one that submitted the variance request for this parcel. I've lived in Boise my entire life. My husband and I dream of raising our boys on this flag lot. We love going to the Eagle Bike Park, and unfortunately, this 50-foot irrigation ditch easement crosses the front of the lot. Once the standard 20-foot front setback and 15 rear setback are applied, only about 23 feet at the very widest of that parcel depth remain to build. The largest house that could fit inside this envelope is roughly 742 square feet of livable space. We cannot build a livable home for our family without relief from the rear yard setback. When Sheila Smith, the previous owner, submitted this record of survey with the site plan with the home footprints, she did not include dimensions in there. So when the dimensions were added into the footprint, once I applied for this variance, we found out how small the home would actually be, and it would continue to get skinnier and skinnier if you continue to extend it south. The 3-story alternative is just beyond our means, and it would defeat the purpose of like leaning over into the backyard of other neighbors and seeing that way. So the proposed 1,400 square foot home, shifting the house 10 feet west, produces a truly livable main floor plan for my family home. As the lot sits behind the existing house, this new home would be blocked from Arnold Road and would not alter the streetscape or add noticeable traffic. Boise Fire, Parks and Community Forestry and Public Works reviewed the application and issued no objection comments. Our immediate neighbors are also on board, Larry and Linda Perry at 10515 West Arnold. Larry, a cousin of my grandma, wrote that he has no objections and look forward to having us as neighbors. The owner directly south has given verbal approval to my father, Vince Koba, and my father has plans to move into the parcel just east of ours if this variance is granted. Granting this request would not give us a privilege other property owners lack. If we simply turn the house to the north, like they had stated, that wall would be relieved to 5-foot side yard side. 5-foot side yard and require no variance at all. We're asking to keep the front door looking to the east so that the block maintains its established rhythm. The city has granted similar relief before. In 2008, there was a variance case stating he wanted the side and rear reductions, and the examiner found the variance would not be detrimental to public welfare or the quiet enjoyment of surrounding properties. Our circumstances are nearly identical and unchosen hardship, strong neighborhood and agency support, and a proposal that meets the variance criteria. The home remains under the 35-foot height cap, uses 6-foot solid fence plus evergreen screening, minimal window use on the south and east sides of our home, careful planning of outdoor spaces, ensure that the side of the home will function as the primary backyard and outdoor living area, maintaining the privacy and quiet enjoyment for both our family and adjacent property owners. The required ditch setback at the front will allow sufficient yard space on both the front and side, further mitigating potential impacts and enhancing the usability and aesthetic appeal of the home. Boise housing prices have risen over 50% in a few short years. Because my father already owns this land and is willing to build the house himself, this variance is the only realistic way we can remain in the community that shaped us. We're not enlarging the lot to make a profit. We're asking for space to build our home. One that's thoughtfully designed, owner occupied, and has on an established block. For these reasons, I respectfully ask you approve the request 10-foot reduction in the rear yard setback. We are happy to accept any reasonable conditions you believe necessary. And thank you for taking the time to hear our story.
Thank you. Now take a deep breath. I have some questions for you. Okay, so you said something about your father and I didn't catch it. What did you say
Yeah,
about
so
him
my
building
dad-
something?
Yes, he owns Coba Homes and he would be building the house. He owns the
Oh, okay.
property right now. He'd build the house and then he would move into the parcel to the east of us. So the house that would be in the front of us, he would move in right there and
Okay,
build his house.
okay. And so, okay. I'll probably have some more questions for you later. but
Okay.
Let me get through the rest of the public.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'll move on. Oh, is there anyone representing the neighborhood association for this tonight? Okay, not tonight. It's this afternoon. Sorry. All right, moving on to the sign-up sheet. I have Damon Ramos. Would you try to talk faster than your wife? Do you think it's possible? Okay. And Vince Kuba? You're good? Okay. All right. And is there anyone that would like to speak to this that's not on the sign-up sheet? Seeing no hands raised, we'll move online. Is there anyone online? Staff is shaking their head, so no one online. All right, Ms. Ramos, why don't you come back up? And Ms. Lockhorn, would you put up the current site plan, please? That one. So the property just to the east of you faces north. Front is north. The property just east of that faces north, and the property just east of that faces north on similar size lots. If you were to face your property north, you would lose your RV lot,
Mhm.
but you'd have all your livable home space that you're looking for. To me, that seems like a good solution, but I want to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, we've tried to do it that way, and since the ditch comes back and then the side, it still doesn't make it wide enough to be able to have an RV bay and a car, like a normal size driveway in there, like pulling in down that driveway and then coming down. Our house would have to get really skinny in the back, so I've tried to draw it that way as well.
So the indoor storage of your RV is really what's driving a lot of this house?
Yeah,
That's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, yes, that's like one of our biggest hobbies is just our garage space. We ride bikes, we jet boat. That's kind of what encompasses our home and what we're looking for in a new home. So yeah.
And what's the square footage of the house?
Well, that site plan or that I submitted is just kind of like a rough draft. I had asked Madison if I needed like a legit floor plan, and she was just saying like something along the lines like a footprint is a good idea to have. So I can cut back if we need. That's just a rough draft essentially.
But you did
showing-
provide elevations. I remember seeing
Yes,
them.
I submitted elevations too,
Okay.
just with that floor plan. I think, I don't know. I think the bottom was 1,400, around 1,400 square feet.
And so you understand that usually if you have a front setback, you have a back, just like right behind it, right?
Yes.
I'm inclined to, I asked staff a lot of questions about the orientation because to me, it seems like a reasonable solution for this variance is to allow you to face the unit north.
Okay.
It would mean perhaps losing the indoor storage for your RV. But if, I mean, unfortunately, the lot was created knowing that it had this big easement.
Correct.
So you're getting at least something out of the variance. And it only has to be a 15-foot setback because you have basically a side-loaded garage at that point. So it's an additional 10 feet that you would need to find.
Yeah.
So maybe you can find that in somewhere in there.
Okay.
Right? Okay, so you've heard me talk. This is actually, you have an opportunity for rebuttal based on all the comments that you heard from all the other people that spoke about your project. So if you'd like to take time for your rebuttal, you may.
I don't know. I guess my only rebuttal would be like, I have tried the house orientation that way, and it just doesn't flow correctly with the driveway, like the amount of backup space that we need, which I think is like, what is it, 20 for the backup behind the garage? And then like garage depth, by the time we're getting all the way to that, it's just not enough. Like the footprint, it just doesn't make sense when I've drawn it that way. But
And is it
I mean, if
because
that's
of
how
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have
No, you're okay.
interrupted
You
you.
can,
Is it because of the location of the property line you had joined with your father-in-law? Or your father? I forget what it was.
the property, sorry, what was that?
Your east property line?
Yes.
Is that what's causing the problems with the backup area?
No,
Okay,
no.
okay.
I'm just saying from the north property line. So if my house was turned the north property line, and then you have to have the 50 or the 20 feet, is that correct?
It would be 15.
15 for backup space? Okay.
Oh, that's what I'm wondering what you mean by backup space.
From the edge of your garage, how far do you have to have to the?
So that would be going to the east because your garage faces east.
Oh, I thought you were saying flip the home orientation would be your.
No, I'm saying lose 10 feet off your RV bay or push your
Oh,
house 10 feet to the
you're saying
south.
just leave it exactly how it is, but just keep the setback or like deny my. Okay.
You'd Madison or Ms. Lockhorn, could you point out where the front would be if it were north? So what you're doing, so that would be your front property line. So then your house could start 15 feet from there.
Okay, that's what I was referencing. And then would you have 20 feet on top of the 15 for the backup space for your driveway requirement?
No, because your driveway faces east, so there's not an additional 20 feet going that way.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
I guess not. Okay, I get it. So my driveway would just come in the side. It wouldn't be in the front of my home.
Right.
Correct.
You
Okay,
don't
I
have
was
to,
not-
you can have a side loaded garage and your property's set up
I
well
was
for that.
envisioning you saying the prop. Okay, sorry.
And I think you probably have a nice enough neighbor that if you had to maybe swing around a little bit or adjust a line,
Got it.
he might be able to help you
Okay.
with that.
Okay, that makes sense.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any last words since we've
No,
had
sorry.
a lot of conversation? Okay. So I'm going to close the public hearing now and render a decision. So I will grant the variance in that I will allow you to have the home oriented toward the north, the front yard oriented toward the north. So you just need to pick up another 10 feet there. So it's basically a 15-foot setback from the north property line.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Staff, do you need any further clarification on that?
Yeah, Ms. Kenny, so just to be clear, the east and the west, or the east, or excuse me, the west property line, which was the subject, that should remain at the 5 feet, or excuse me, the
That will now become a side setback of 5 feet.
side setback of 5 feet. Perfect. So we're just spinning those around.
Yes, it gives them a lot more workable area to work with.
Understood.
Okay. And Ms. Lockhorn, hopefully you understood all that and can help the applicant. Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. We're now going to CVA 250015, Cushing Terrell on Oahe Street. And I don't know, just for the record, I have been driving past this for 10 years, so I know the site well. Mr. Dennis, please.
Thank you, Ms. Canning, and good afternoon. As you said, the item before you is a variance request to deviate from the streetscape standards and access and connectivity requirements to install curb gutter and detached sidewalk on 9.08 acres located at 1609 South Oahe Street in an A1 open land, very low density zone. This variance request is associated with a conditional use permit and design review modification to construct a public pool located at the northeastern corner of Whitney Elementary School, as shown here. CUP mods and design review modifications require new street improvements, so the applicant is wishing to retain the existing sidewalks, which are 5 feet wide along Overland Road, and 9 feet wide along the northeastern portion of Oahe Street, and then that sums down to 5 feet along the southeastern portion of Oahe Street. And since the scope of this work is located within the northeastern corner of this 9-acre parcel, the nexus or proportionality of these street improvement requirements only extends to the adjacent streets, which are Overland Road and Oahe Street, which are the subjects of this variance request. The applicant has identified 2 hardships associated with the site. First, they state that ACHD's planned improvements along Overland Road conflict with the city standard requirement. These planned improvements consist of replacing this 5-foot wide attached sidewalk with a 7.5-foot wide attached sidewalk with new pedestrian ramps and a new traffic signal near this intersection, as shown here in the top left corner. These planned improvements are within ACHD's integrated 5-year work plan with a design year of 2024 to 2025 and a construction year of 2026. As such, planning staff is supportive of the variance request along Overland Road because these planned improvements will require newly installed infrastructure to be replaced, which does not align with the city's climate goals of reducing solid waste being landfilled. Next, the applicant contends that the ACHD's planned bicycle lane project along Oahe Street also conflicts with the city's standard street improvement requirement. However, planning staff is not supportive of this variance request along the northeastern portion of the street frontage along Oahe Street. These planned improvements, as cited by the applicant, will not interfere with the construction of new street improvements on the subject property because it's planned for a portion of Oahe Street that is north of Overland Road and not adjacent to the subject property. Further, these planned improvements are within ACHD's integrated 5-year work plan with a design year of 2029 to 2030 and a construction year that is currently to be determined. That being said, the southern half of the street frontage adjacent to Oahe Street contains 10 healthy mature trees that would need to be removed to accommodate these new street improvements. Therefore, planning staff is supportive of the variance request along the southern 400 feet of the subject property's frontage on Oahe Street. In conclusion, and to summarize, planning staff is recommending approval of the variance request along Overland Road and the southern 400 feet of Oahe Street, as shown here in green. Planning staff is recommending denial of the variance request along the northern 400 feet of Oahe Street, as shown here in red. and I will stand for any questions.
None at this time. Thank you, Mr. Dennis. We will now hear from the applicant. Please state your name and address for the record.
Joshua Gregoire, 2142 Justine Court in Fruitland. The reason we're requesting this variance, part of this project does include improvements along Owyhee Street adjacent to where we're developing the property. We are installing a drop-off area to facilitate drop-off of community members as part of the pool project. Part of that improvement will adjust that area around the sidewalk that is existing. And as part of ACHD's project, the northern portion of that sidewalk will get improved at the corner. And as part of the project, the sidewalk will get adjusted at the driveway at the existing school. What happens is ultimately about 150 feet of sidewalk would end up being detached and then transition back into our drop-off. And we feel that that portion would, or the drop-off allows, improved circulation. It improves the existing circulation of the neighbors, the students that are coming onto the site. We also feel that, as staff mentioned, there is a future ACHD project for a bike lane that will ultimately happen in the most likely 2030 or before. And we feel that part of that project, as improving the bike lane by detaching the sidewalk, could render conflicts to the project.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So staff has kind of outlined a compromise, but it sounds like you still would like to have attached sidewalks to everywhere. Is that
We would like to keep the attached sidewalk along the development.
okay? So the existing drop-off area just kind of turns a corner, right? So you've added kind of a somewhat L-shaped curve or a
Right. We've designed a turnout for buses and for community drop-off for users of the pool.
and how do they get out? I think I might have missed that.
They would get out. There's a level landing that we would be providing that is level with.
How does the bus get out? Mr. Dennis, can you maybe show how
If there's in the packet that we submitted, there's an enlarged site plan that shows how that is laid out. We have that.
Ms. Canning, I have the aerial imagery with the site plan overlaid.
okay.
Mr. Holmes may be able to pull up a better representation.
Yeah, if we look just south of the heavy dotted line, this is our proposed drop-off area.
Oh,
So
okay.
it creates a separate lane essentially for a bus or a large vehicle to drop off students. As part of the program, there are students and community members that are dropped off in large numbers at the site. And we feel that because we're putting this in, this addresses some of the concerns about the detached sidewalk. Some of the other concerns are about the landscape buffer just north of that heavy dash line. We are putting in a significant amount of landscaping to increase the buffer zone between the back of curb and the fence, which in our opinion is our interpretation of the regulation is one of the goals of the detached sidewalk is to increase the buffer zone from the street to the
Okay.
property.
Mr. Holmes, can you just zoom in on that, on the drop-off areas? I missed that. It's kind of got lost with some of the other lines. So you cross. You're just carving out, so there won't be any landscape buffer. It's just Owyhee Street will get wider there.
Owyhee Street will get wider there, and then there's a section between the building and the back of sidewalk, about a 15 to 20-foot section of landscaping.
Okay, and so you're proposing to not keep the existing sidewalk there, but you will build a new sidewalk adjacent to your drop-off area.
Correct. And
Is that correct?
that is correct. And it will be wider to help the amount of students and users that will be using the pool and both the school circulate around there.
Okay. Great. Do you know much about the other drop-off area, or do you have someone from the school district that?
I don't believe we have a representation from the school district here, but they do use the parking lot to the south for the school buses and for parent pickup and drop off.
Yeah, my question to the south is, so from this section that we were looking at just now, it's no parking from there up to Overland. So so there aren't parents parking to pick up kids. And
Well, there are, but yes,
there shouldn't be, yeah, there's
there
not
shouldn't
supposed to
be,
be.
but there are.
But I believe from this point south, it's a yellow curb, is that correct? And there are parents that go to pick up that hang out there to pick up their kids.
Correct.
Okay. Do buses also use that as loading area, or they pull in,
They
correct?
pull in to this
Okay.
parking lot to the south.
Okay, thank you. That was what I thought it was, but I just wanted to double check.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone representing the neighborhood association here tonight? Seeing no hands go up, I will ask if there's anyone online. There is no one online. I have no one signed up. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this application that didn't sign up? All right, I think the man in red beat you out, and so we'll hear from him first. Please come up and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Richard Pedraza. Address is 3505 West Overland Road. I actually own Rich's Auto Care, which is adjacent to the pool that's coming up. My biggest question was during construction, where the entryway is going to come in at, because I was at I was there when they built the school originally, and I was actually trying to get some property that was actually belonged to ACHD at the time, but they said that they pretty much abandoned it and it belonged to the school, but the school said that it was never theirs. So for like 10 years, I could not get purchase anything, but I was able to purchase from the school some property. I went 35 foot south. I was able to do that. It took a couple years to do it, but then when they were talking about building the school, I was talking about the 75 foot to the east of me, which they said, well, that's not ours. And ACHD says, well, that's not ours either. Nobody would ever agree whose it belonged to. But when it come down time to the school, they asked me for access. They said they were going to use that entryway to build a school, which they did for 2 years. And they said at that time, we will figure this out and get you that for parking, because I've been there since I've lived here in Boise since 77, but I've owned that place for 30 years. This year be 30 years I've owned it, and I'm basically next door used to be a Kentucky Fried Chicken next to me, and I tried to purchase that place, but they wanted like $875,000. For some reason the fire department got it for $350,000, but the problem was I was using some of their parking lot. We had an agreement for parking because I have 8 employees, And my spot is not the biggest. And ever since COVID started, well, we have a situation with parts. Nobody has parts anymore. And so it has made not just my business, but anybody who has, well, an automotive business, it just filled up all the parking lots with cars that waiting for parts for. I used to be able to get a car done in and out in a couple days. Now they sit for 2 weeks. And when the COVID started, it was 8 months. I was actually shipping cars back to people's homes so I can get parts. But it's the parking situation is not very good for me right now because the fire department, when they first built it, I explained to them, I go, well, first of all, I didn't think it was big enough when I came up to my place. I thought they were going to just try to get my place too. But they said, no, it was big enough. But once they built it, then they found out they can't pull their trucks around. So they made that whole road where we're also parking employee cars. They made it a fire lane. And so it basically, I have to use 8 of my own parking spots for my employees. And I don't have that much parking. I have a really small area.
Time.
And so my biggest concern was during the construction, somebody was saying, well, we're going to do it like we did to school. We're going to come in through your area.
So your time is up. I'm going to cut you off, but I'm going to ask, you've stated your concern about the construction. So when the applicant comes back up, I'm hoping he can address that. But in the meantime, I have a question for you.
Yes.
The 75-foot piece of property, do we know where that is?
It's basically the road from
Nez
across
Perce, or not
the
Nez
street.
Perce?
If you go directly across north, it's the continuation of the road because originally that used to be a subdivision.
So we're going to zoom out and find a city map here. Hopefully. It's the name of the street is the guy that likes to look in the mirror. Nope, it's Atlantic. I was thinking Dorian. Oh, you are saying Dorian. So it would be where Dorian heads into the site there?
Let's see, just like right across if you go on the east side of my property line, if you go across the street if you cross Overland, the
Oh,
road
okay.
was right there, it went straight through the school.
Okay, so it's showing up as school property now. So
Yeah, now it's showing up as school property, but originally when the school was moved, the school used to be where the grass was.
okay, so that issue is probably beyond anything I can address tonight because it's showing up as school ownership and
Yes.
I don't have any. So, but I will have them address the construction aspect if they're able to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But one of my biggest things is this new pool that's built. There's only one additional parking spot added to what's there right now.
Okay.
And they're going to have a lot of employees and everybody's wondering where
Okay, I
they're
got to stop you. Your time's up. Sorry, but maybe we'll hear something from someone else. All right. Thank you, sir. Okay, and now you may come up. You state your name and address for the record, please.
Jessica Rodriguez. I actually work here with the city too, and I'm the project manager for the Whitney Pool project. My address is 1008 South Johnson Street, which is actually near the project site.
Yes, it is.
And just to kind of reiterate on what Josh was able to speak to, with the section of sidewalk that is being proposed that staff recommends to be detached, it is an existing 9-foot wide. It's we did receive support from the school district to keep it as attached because they like that width. They like the flow of the pedestrian traffic for the students who do walk to school. We do in that section of sidewalk have an existing water main in the sidewalk. There's the traffic light that's in that area that does, the school zone, the flashing school zone at 20 miles per hour, and the road currently be outside of the school operating is a 25 mile per hour street. And in just some clarification on that bus drop off, the pool operating hours will not operate during school season at all. So there will be no pool activity at that time. And I know it may be a little relief for the drop off and pick up for the school, but that's at this time. And I think just in regards to during construction, we've had discussions with ACHD. Construction access will be off of Overland temporarily to not impede during any, because construction will occur during school. So we will not affect that at all for the traffic, and it is within the school district's property.
Okay. So where, do you know, so the water main issue, it's under the current sidewalk?
It's in the sidewalk.
It's-
Approximately like about 130 feet south of back a curb from Overland. I don't know if there's something to show it.
Oh, okay, but so it runs parallel to Overland, not Owyhee.
No, it runs parallel to Owyhee, but it's in the sidewalk, the existing 9-foot sidewalk, to attached sidewalk.
Okay. Mr. Dennis, were you proposing that the sidewalk be separated from the bus loading zone originally, or would it attach there and go down, or? You'd have to have a sidewalk for the bus loading, correct?
Right, Ms. Canning. Planning staff's recommendation is to do the full 10-foot wide sidewalk separated by an 8-foot wide landscape buffer at that intersection between the school entrance and near Owyhee Street, that northern entrance. That corner would need to meet PROAG standards, so it would need to have about a 10-foot wide pedestrian landing. So that was part of the recommendation as well.
And just to address that area, there is an existing fire hydrant in that area, as well as their irrigation controls.
The costs of construction aren't generally considered a hardship for a variance, so, but thank you. Did you have other items you would?
That was it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And is there anyone else that would like to speak on this matter? I thought I understood this, but now I'm a little confused, Mr. Dennis. So let's go through it step by step. The area going down Owyhee Street from Overland to where this bus drop-off area is that we're looking at. So that area was the area you were looking for remove the attached sidewalk, put in a 10-foot landscape buffer and a 5-foot sidewalk?
Ms. Canning, that's almost correct. The 10-foot wide sidewalk is required because Owyhee Street is a collector. So
Okay.
it's a 10-foot wide sidewalk, 8-foot wide landscape buffer.
Okay. And that would continue until it came to the bus pullout area, and then that sidewalk would attach itself to the bus pullout area?
Ms. Canning, that's correct. So
Okay.
from the intersection of Owyhee and Overland.
Okay, and then after the bus pullout area, we're working north to south, so.
Ms. Canning, from moving north from south, you can see on the site plan now, there's the kind of that diagonal pedestrian crossing. That's part of PROAG standards to
Yes.
have enough clearance there for pedestrian landing. Moving south from there, planning staff is recommending that the 8-foot wide landscape buffer and 10-foot wide sidewalk extend down all the way to this northern entrance to the pickup area. Right around here, where it comes in, does that U shape. That corner, as well as the corner across from that, would need to meet PROAG standards as well. So, and that's because when we relocate the path that pedestrians would be taking, but leave the attached sidewalk to the south, what that would do is create a diagonal crosswalk across the pickup drop-off area. And so planning staff's recommendation only extends to the southern part of the entrance, right? So there's the two PROAG corners at the entrance to the school. And then that would allow that pedestrian pathway to align all the way down and not have to meander as it's proposed.
Okay, but it's not detached all the way. It's attached where the bus pullout comes. That's what I wanted to clarify. for the
Ms.
most
Canning,
part.
that's correct.
Okay. And then we get to the end, and then we've got a little bit of jog to get back to, or I'm sorry, we get to the end of the where the drop-off area is, or the beginning of the drop-off area, I guess it is. And there's a diagonal to get to the existing sidewalk where parents come and unload and load.
Ms. Canning, that's correct. So shown here, the red portions on the east side of that property, you can see that extend the red, which represents the detached sidewalk or the required improvements, right? So it would be a detached sidewalk along that frontage. And then at the corners, the PROAG standard, which is the 10-foot wide pedestrian path, pedestrian landing zone.
Okay.
So that would also extend to the southern side of that entrance as well, just to align the
Okay.
crosswalk.
It was just a pull-out area that was throwing me for a loop. Sorry. Okay. And then on the attached sidewalk area that's shown in green up there, I did want to make a comment. Staff's recommendation was to keep it based on the number of trees that were there. I don't find the presence of trees to be a hardship. I mean, if we go down that route, I'm worried that there are a lot of trees and a lot of landscape buffers in the city of Boise. That's kind of what we've been striving for a number of years. So I don't feel that that's a hardship. However, I think the fact that this is a loading and unloading zone for small children, it's a huge safety issue to take away that sidewalk, because once you take away that sidewalk, you've got parents either trying to walk across a landscape berm or they're walking them in the street, which would be horrible. So for that reason, I'd like to have those findings amended to remove the landscape one, because really there's also room to get behind all those trees with a sidewalk if you really wanted to. But I think we need to keep that sidewalk as recommended by staff attached in that area for the safety issue. I think that's the overriding concern. Okay, and I haven't talked about it, but in previous decisions where ACHD has already allocated and designed money and designed streetscapes, we have that prevail. So we'll have that overland section will be good. I think this will be a safer arrangement for everyone. So those are my thoughts. Having said all that, we can now hear any rebuttal remarks by the applicant. That's you.
So I wanted to express, we understand
Just briefly state your name and
Sorry.
for the record again, please.
Joshua Gregoire, 2142 Justine Court, Fruitland, Idaho. In addressing the neighbors' concerns about parking, those were brought up in part of our neighborhood meeting, part of the design is that the pool only operates when the school is closed. So we can reuse the existing parking that is down below, that is part of the school. The parking is in excess of current code requirements for the school. So even if there were joint operation, there's plenty of space for both uses. Again, the parking is not necessarily related to the detached sidewalk part of this hearing, but it is something that we would be willing to discuss with the neighbor as part of for the further process of this application and in design review and as we go through the process.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I will now close the public hearing. I am going to Move to approve the variance as the portions as outlined by staff. So you have the Overland Road, and then you have the southern portion of Owyhee Street approved, but the area that's shown in red there, you will need to do the detached until it mirrors up to where the loading zone is, and then it'll be attached. And staff, I just ask you that you change those findings regarding trees to the safety issue that's there. All right. With that, we will move on to our last item, presumably the one that's brought all you fine folks over here. All right, there we go. I got a thumbs up over there. We're now going to hear CZC 24-00245 and ROS 24-0056, an appeal brought forth by the Millwell Place Homeowners Association. And today we have Mr. Dennis yet again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kenning. As you said, the item before you is an appeal of planning director's administrative approval of ROS 2456 and CZC 24245, a record of survey for a minor land division to create 2 buildable lots and a zoning certificate for the construction of a duplex and an ADU located at 6725 West Saxton Avenue in an R1C residential traditional zone on 0.36 acres. This item may look familiar to you, as about a year ago, we held a hearing for an appeal of an administrative denial of a similar proposal on this property. Previously, the applicant proposed a 3-lot minor land division with a 4-plex and an ADU. This denial was upheld by the planning examiner. Now the applicant has proposed a 2-lot minor land division with a duplex and ADU. You'll also notice a few minor changes to the plans and/or conditions of approval. The key difference being the newly proposed site plan contains an attached sidewalk rather than a detached sidewalk as the original had. This is because the development code provides the opportunity for the planning director to allow attached sidewalks on local streets when it has been determined that detached sidewalks are unable to be constructed due to unusual terrain, site conditions, utility conditions, or other circumstances that make the provision of detached sidewalks impractical. In this case, an attached sidewalk would better align with the adjacent street improvements, which are both attached as well, and would avoid the creation of a non-conforming front setback of the existing home on site. As such, the applicant submitted a waiver request to the planning director, which was approved to allow a new 5-foot wide attached sidewalk to be constructed along that northern frontage, which would also, as I said, better align to the adjacent street improvements to the east and west. The grounds for appeal were submitted by the appellant, along with a memorandum that provides additional information for each ground. These are summarized on your screen and in the project report and will be addressed individually as part of this presentation. First, the appellant contends that 4 trees along the subject property's northern frontage on Saxton Avenue will be removed to accommodate the new sidewalk that is required. Further, it states that the landscape plan was not prepared by a certified landscape architect and contains inaccuracies and therefore cannot meet the landscaping section of the development code. These trees are listed within the arborist report as poor health condition, therefore no mitigation is required. The proposal was reviewed by the Parks and Recreation Department, who provided agency comments concurring with the proposal. Landscape plans are not required to be prepared by a certified landscape architect to receive planning approval. However, a certified landscape architect will be required to prepare plans for the submission of the subsequent building permits associated with this approval. And these are the trees in question.
Mr. Dennis, can I stop you right there? Because the applicant actually stated in his letter that he doesn't have to have anything, he's exempt because he's less than 4 units.
Ms. Kenning, this is just addressing the tree mitigation, the required mitigation for those trees. They were in poor health, so they weren't required to be mitigated.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're clear on the requirement that a landscape plan be prepared by a licensed professional for the building permit. The applicant in his response letter not the appellant, but the applicant stated that one would not be required because properties with less than 4 units are exempt from that requirement.
Ms. Kenning, that's close. There's a section of code that requires the submission of landscape plans during the building permit to be prepared by a landscape architect. That's separate from the requirement 1149, which is the landscaping section.
Okay. So he was referencing the latter, and I was thinking the former. Okay, thank you for that clarification. I just thought it'd be better to get it out of the way now. Thank you.
Thank you. Second, the appellant contends that the subject property's boundary lines are misrepresented, and therefore the location of the proposed driveway does not meet ACHD's district policy that requires a 75-foot separation of a driveway from the intersection of two local roads, which in this case would be Saxon Avenue and Portsmouth Avenue. The proposed driveway is located 86 feet east of this intersection. As such, it complies with ACHD policy and the city's development code. Additionally, ACHD provided agency comments confirming that it meets policy and should be approved as proposed. Third, the appellant contends that ACHD and the city of Boise requirements cannot be met as proposed. This includes constructing Saxton Avenue as a 36-foot wide street, half of a 36-foot wide street section with new curb, gutter, and attached sidewalk. The required driveway separation and installing the landscape buffers along the existing and proposed driveways east of those between them and the eastern property lines. As previously described and as proposed, these requirements have been confirmed to have been met or have been conditioned to be met. Finally, the appellant contends that the power poles in the northwest and northeast corners of the site are not shown on plans, and again that the plans contain inaccuracies as they are not prepared by a licensed professional. The appellant also states that the power poles will need to be relocated to accommodate the required sidewalk. The appellant is correct in this assertion that the applicant will need to coordinate with Idaho Power to relocate these poles. However, the applicant did delineate these poles on a topographic map, as shown here. In conclusion, the planning team recommends the hearing examiner deny the appeal and uphold both of the planning director's administrative approvals. And I will stand for any questions.
I have no further ones. I don't think. No, thank you. All right, now we will hear from the appellant is first on the list. Come on up, please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, Madam Examiner, members of staff.
That's quite a voice you have, sir.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
My name is Randy Wall. I'm with Professional Engineering Services. My address is 5636 North Portsmouth Avenue, Boise. And I'm here to represent the Millwell Place Homeowners Association. Before we get going, before you start that clock, please, could you bring up, Matt, could you bring up that site plan that you had up earlier? The one was like before and after, or yeah, that's the one. Okay. Among the other things that we have a problem with, the HOA has a problem with, what I really want to focus on here is this current proposed approved site plan. Now, also, would it be possible to bring up the exhibit that I submitted with my appeal? If you look at here before you change it, Matt, look at this is where he represents the driveway to be. And if you could bring up my exhibit, please.
Sorry, I just have to open the project report.
Right, and I'd like to reclaim my time on this too, please.
Okay, thank you for bearing with us.
Yeah, could you zoom in on that for me, please? Thank you. Okay, so on the approved site plan from the applicant, it was clearly not surveyed. It's not accurate. We surveyed the property. This survey was done under my direction as a registered civil engineer in the state of Idaho. This is the true distance, the 86-foot distance we're talking about. This is significantly different than what is shown on the approved site plan. Okay. So that's the first thing. Now, if you go back to item number 3 in regard to the conditions of approval. Now, I know I was preaching to the choir here, but ACHD has its process, submit, review, it's approved by whoever's approving over there, sent over to the city of Boise. Everything's gathered together, it's reviewed. There's a formal approval process that's done by the planning director, okay, that approves everything, right? Now, the issue that I have with this set of conditions of approval is that ACHD revised their report. Okay, that's clear. They changed the road from a collector to a local, which changed that 75-foot, 86 to 75-foot setback. And there are revisions in their report that are in blue. But the condition of approval number 3 that stated the 86-foot setback was not changed. Okay, it's very explicit. I'll read it to you. The driveway, construct a 20-foot wide paved driveway from the side onto Saxton Avenue, located 86 feet east of Portsmouth Avenue. Now, this is the revised part. The driveway may expand to greater than 20 feet outside of the right-of-way. All right, there's that. Then in the staff report, there was a statement made. This is item number 3, the response. At the bottom, it says, as such, the newly proposed driveway will be constructed 86 feet east of the center line of the intersection of Saxton Avenue and Portsmouth Avenue, and will be improved with a 5-foot wide landscape buffer on its eastern side as required by ACHD policy and the development code. And Madam Examiner, this is where I'm struggling, okay? We went out and surveyed it. I'm a registered civil engineer. I've got over 40 years experience doing these exact type of plans, okay? I'm looking at the one that's approved by the city, where the city is making a unilateral statement that this can be done. And I'm demonstrating that it can't. So I'm really struggling here. There is a policy discussion in the document that talks about the 75-foot setback. I don't dispute that. But in all the years I've done site plans, I've never designed my site plan to a policy discussion. I designed my site plan to the conditions of approval. These conditions explicitly state that it needs to be 86 feet. Okay, why didn't ACHD revise that when they were revising the document? I don't know. Okay, but that's where I'm struggling with this approval. I could go on, but I just want to talk about this project globally, okay? Good planning is really about fitness, consistency with surrounding developments, right? Okay. Courts have held that architecture, density, basically aesthetics, impact the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens that are surrounding the project, okay? I understand that Mr. Folger has worked very hard to make this meet the letter of the law, the new zoning code, okay? But this property is like an island that resulted from the development of Millwell Place, which is 71 homes. And the property was actually originally owned and sold by the 3 large lots that are along the north side of Saxton Avenue, right? Okay, so, but if you look at the whole surrounding area, it's all single-family residences. Millwell HOA made a significant effort to work with Folger Development to develop that parcel with single-family residences. We offered the driveway easement that he needed, but he turns us away. Okay. So I can tell you that the overwhelming majority of homeowners in Millwell Place opposes this project. The 3 original property owners who sold the property, who live on Saxon Avenue, they oppose this project. And I really think that this project is inconsistent with the surrounding neighborhood. And I'm requesting that you uphold our appeal, have this go back, and have it be based upon a accurate site plan, an accurate design, so that the city can really take a look at it, fix the 75-foot condition of approval, so we can move forward.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have anyone else signed up to speak. Is there someone from that wasn't on the sign up sheet sheet, not sheep, no sheep here tonight, sheet that would like to speak? I see no hands. Is there anyone online?
Ms. Canning, the applicant, Joshua Folger.
I forgot
is
the
online.
applicant again. Now
If
we
he
would
would like
like
to
to
speak.
hear from the applicant, if we could, please.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Joshua Folger at 1099 Crescent Street in Meridian, Idaho 83646. I don't have much substance to provide. I'm in favor of the proposed development. Between last year's appeal hearing on the subject property and the current plan and approval, I find no reason for this appeal to be upheld. I feel this project meets the vision of the city and should remain approved as is. Randy made mention that they offered my team the driveway easement that I turned away. I'll just note that they offered that about 14 months down the road after I had already previously asked for their cooperation, which they turned away. So they sat at the table 14 months too late, and at that point it was indeed too late for me to be able to change my plans. And then I guess my last comment is you and Matt had touched on the landscape requirements. Matt mentioned there's code requiring a landscape architect, and I'd just like for him to point out which section of code this is. But other than that, I don't have anything further to add.
Thank you, Mr. Folger. Sorry, I didn't call you right away. I apologize. These appeal hearings, I forget the original applicant. But thankfully, Mr. Holmes reminds me. So with regard to the driveway easement, though, I remember that coming up at the other hearing. Isn't that true that they offered that before the first hearing on this? So before you redesigned it with the duplex and the ADU?
For the fourplex, I don't believe so. I'd have to go back through the timeline, but
Okay.
I don't believe so.
That's
Well, the
all right.
easement wouldn't have done any good for the fourplex design, so no, they would not have offered it for the fourplex design.
Okay. Did you have additional comments you wanted to make?
In my letter for this appeal, I believe I attached an exhibit of ACHD's email stating that they weren't going to revise the letter and that their email talking about the 75 feet should suffice. So I just wanted to point out that ACHD was aware of the 75 feet and chose to not update their letter because they felt at the time it was not required.
Okay. All right.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now, Mr. Holmes, is there anyone else online that would like to testify? All right, Mr. Holmes is shaking his head. Mr. Dennis, I had a question. Can you pull up aerial view of the So the development, that's a little blurry, but the development just east of this does have detached sidewalk, correct?
Ms. Canning, I believe that's right. That's correct. Yes.
And then there's that large flag lot,
Correct.
which I thought was an alley. It wasn't. Large flag lot. And then we have this property now with only one parking stall being considered. I guess I'm getting to the director's determination that this is an unusual circumstance that qualifies for waiving the detached sidewalk. I don't think I see any unusual circumstance here. I understand you're trying to keep it from becoming a non-conforming, but did you ever ask that, is there a way that just one car could park there and still be conforming with the separated sidewalk?
Ms. Canning, the installation of a detached sidewalk relocates the point from which the front setback is measured. Once a detached sidewalk is constructed, the front setback is measured from the back of the detached sidewalk, not the property line. So that's where that nonconformity would come in. As soon as you put in a detached sidewalk, it shifts basically the setback or the point from which the setback is measured down to the
Right.
10 to 15
But
feet. right
there's
around there.
undeveloped right of way here that the applicant will need to develop. So part of that landscape buffer is going to be probably in the right of way. And part of it would potentially be on site to still leave room. Guess what it really gets to is I really don't think we know what we're approving on this one because there's so many conditions of approval and the site plan really doesn't address them currently. And I think the appellants have demonstrated that the sidewalk, just if you go on Google Maps and measure, I think the appellant's drawing is probably more accurate than the applicant's at this point. So I think there's some concern there for me. Okay. With that, I think I've expressed my concerns that I had so that the appellant, if you would like to come back up and speak, and I'm prepared for you this time, that booming voice, I'll sit back.
I learned that from an old mentor of mine. Randy Wall, Professional Engineering Services, 5636 North Portsmouth Avenue, Boise. Your questions are spot on. I mean, this has been our concern with this project from day one. It's like going in there with a shoehorn with an affordable project to catch all the loopholes in the zoning ordinance. And it's not working. The detached sidewalk is, if you look just adjacent to the east on Saxton, that's a detached sidewalk. Okay. And your point is extremely well taken. Why is a waiver granted that that otherwise would create a non-conforming situation to put a detached sidewalk in there, which what should be in there? Okay. That's not the purpose of a waiver, is to avoid a non-conforming situation. And just finally, well, a couple other things. Mr. Folger claimed amnesia on the driveway. I negotiated that with him directly. In his statement that he couldn't recall whether it was before he revised the site plan. It was before the site. He put together a whole new package. We'd like to see a single family residence out there, be consistent with the rest of the neighborhood. And we could go along with an attached sidewalk if that was his proposal, but it hasn't been. And just finally, I want to hit this one more time. Yes, there's an email in the file from ACHD. It says, yeah, you can go ahead and build it to 75 feet. But the condition of approval is very explicit. They didn't revise it. So now, this is what I want to know. Because I do this for a living.
Let me clarify that. It's 75 feet center line to center line. So it's
Right.
85, it's only off by a foot.
No, this is not true.
No,
It's
I
off-
mean, I'm saying it would be,
It's off by 11
it's
feet.
still, your drawing is accurate within 1 foot. Yeah.
It would be off by 11 feet.
Yeah.
Correct. And it shoves the driveway all the way into
Yeah.
the front yard.
I
Okay.
did, I understood the ACHD thing. You
Right.
seemed like you were going to try and explain it to me again, but
No,
I
I'm not going to
understood
explain
Okay.
it. I just have a question for you.
Okay.
And this comes back to my my explanation into the record of the procedure. So can a project that's been reviewed and approved formally by ACHD, sent over to the city, reviewed and approved by staff and the planning director, cannot be revised by email?
I don't know the answer to that question. Well, I'm not
Because,
sure.
I mean, I'd like to do that all day long if I could,
Yeah,
but I can't.
right.
So I don't understand. This is yet another problem with this application.
I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. I am going to leave the public hearing open. I am going to, I need to have the applicant come back up, please. It's his turn for rebuttal.
This is Joshua Folger again.
Thank you, Joshua.
As far as
I'm
my,
sorry. Thank you, Mr. Folger.
as far as my rebuttal, I proposed to Millwell originally a single-family home back December 2023, which they rejected not once but 3 times over a 5-month span. So the neighborly efforts were performed to no avail. Moving on, I initially designed a detached sidewalk, and Matt asked me to fill out a waiver for variance to go attached, in which we had to redesign for the attached sidewalk. So I instill trust in the city of Boise planning and zoning that when they state that they need an attached sidewalk for the reasons that Matt previously mentioned in this appeal, I have to trust it, and we did, and we redesigned to be an attached sidewalk. And then as far as the ACHD email, I can only control what I can control. I asked them to revise their letter. They stated no, this email will suffice. So those are the 3 pieces of information that I have to fall on, and nothing further on my end.
Okay, thank you. All right. As I started to say before, I'm going to leave the public hearing open. I'm not going to render a decision tonight. I'd like to move this over to our next hearing. And before that time, I would like a detailed site plan that shows the required road construction improvements, that shows, to the extent possible, to meet Mr. Dennis's concerns about the non-conforming structure, but to make that detached sidewalk a possibility. And because I think there is sufficient room there going down to the corner from the driveway. And to really tighten up those details, because I think they are missing from this one. If that driveway is as shown by the appellant's survey on the other property, that presents a concern, I know, and presents a problem with the ROS probably. So I am concerned about the accuracy of the existing site plan that's been approved with all the conditions that have been placed on it. With regard to the driveway, I thought it was pretty clear. It's 75 feet from center line to center line of that 20-foot driveway. So it would be a 85 feet at the furthest extent. So does that give staff enough direction on what I'm looking for?
Scanning, maybe you could just I'll repeat that back to you to make sure we understand. So
Oh.
basically looking.
Wait, I got one other thing.
Oh.
So the original survey by Ackerman and Esfold shows a 20-foot ingress egress easement. So you might look into that too. I didn't see it addressed later on. Maybe that was from a previous application. I'm not sure, but I was concerned about that.
So Ms. Canning, basically, we're looking for a new site plan, basically meeting all of the conditions of approval to make sure that they can indeed be met. And then in regards to the attached versus detached sidewalk, would you like the site plan to show the detached or both, or?
I suspect there's room there because with an error, it wasn't a big street section. So I suspect there's sufficient right of way to get quite a bit of that landscape buffer in the right of way. And then allowing that sidewalk to maybe not cause a non-conforming condition. I think you may need to work with them and look at it, but I can't tell you the answer to that question right now. I'm hoping to see detached sidewalks. I think that's appropriate here, especially since the property to the east has detached sidewalks. So that's my hope, but I'm interested to see what the final drawing looks like.
Okay, understood.
And then to address that easement that's shown on the Ackerman Esfold drawing. So thank you. And the public hearing is still open. I will allow you to come up once more, sir. But please keep it brief because I
And the
shouldn't.
volume down, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Examiner. I just have one question. When you're asking for the clarification on the site plan of the setback of the center line of the driveway to the center line of the intersection of Saxton and North Portsmouth, are you asking for a 75-foot setback or an 86-foot setback?
It's stated 75.
No, it's stated 86, very explicitly in the conditions of approval.
Oh, and then conditions of approval. So you're
Yes.
going to that one, not to the, okay.
Yes.
So the staff has said they're looking, that they, thank you for that clarification.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Okay. So even though the ACHD says 75, if the conditions of approval say 86 from center line to center line, if that's the way it was written, then it's, I guess, what we're looking for right now. So.
Ms. Canning, just one question on that. If ACHD provides clarifying comments, because it does look like maybe there's a discrepancy between their conditions of approval and their comments themselves, should we just design that bring that site plan with whatever their clarifications are based on that?
Yes, but let's have it in at least a letter rather than just an email. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I'm sorry that you probably see you all next month. So, but thank you for coming. And all our school folks stayed. Thank you for staying. A little surprised. That's the end of our agenda. We are now adjourned.